Sure.
said that if people want to improve themselves and are given the opportunity, then they'll make the best of themselves. I'm a little unclear on whether this is an opt-in program or if someone is picked up in a park, homeless and perhaps intoxicated or otherwise impaired, if they are forced to go through this section.
Okay, great question. So it touches on a couple of things. So we don't believe in coercion. We believe in rules and responsibilities and accountability. If you break a rule, there are consequences that come with that. While as a shelter, we don't believe in, figuratively speaking, sheltering people from their responsibilities. We don't pity people, and we don't forgive them for the mistakes they make. This is about taking responsibility and having consequences of their action.
Are these people who are choosing to come to treatment, or are these people who are being put there by the city and by the state?
These are people who have voluntarily sought shelter from the city, have come first to an intake point in Manhattan, have participated in that process, have been evaluated as appropriate in needing the services that they seek, and so they are given the option then of having a place to stay and will be brought to this location. If they change their mind and they want to leave, that's great, and they're entitled to want to leave. It's not a prison, and we will work to transfer them to a more appropriate place to go.
Christine?
My name is Christine Halowatz. I represent...
too much taxes.
Man?
That's okay. I represent Greenpoint Waterfront Association for Parks and Planning, and I also represent Newtown Creek Monitoring Committee. So at first I would like to thank you for coming here, and I have to say two things that I think you are, Mr. Rosenbach, a great businessman and a better politician. I can see from the way you speak. It's wonderful. And I'm happy that you've taken this, these people that really should be taken care of, all of the homeless and stuff. But most of your shelters are really in the area where there had been a lot of homeless to begin with. There is something in our city that's called a fair share. We have the Greenpoint Hospital. There is something on 160 Clay Street where there is a hostel and all that, we're putting your facility in the middle of all of that. It's going to do nothing else except it's going to deteriorate the whole community that's in that area. Now, both of the organizations that I belong to have been fighting very much for open space. We have the Nature Walk, which is about 3 blocks away from where you're proposing the shelter. On the other side, there is the end of Manhattan Avenue, which is a park. We're also going to develop another piece of a bulkhead. Now, these guys, when they're going to be so-called not behaving properly and getting out, they're going to end up in our open space. And this is not what we're going to go. This can't happen. You can't just look at Greenpoint and put everything in that is always. Those days are over. The biggest sewer treatment plant. We have Community Board 1 has its shares of these shelters. And you putting in a shelter where someone is there for 2 weeks and they're moving out. No transportation, giving them public transportation. Do you know where Greenpoint Avenue is? As they're going to be walking around, you have kids walking back from schools from 34 and back. And how do you think they need help. And another question that I really wanted to ask you is, are you going to be able to help a population of illegal immigrants because they are undocumented and they really don't have anything? And this is what the problem we have here in this community. We have, I think, about 40 or 50 of them, and we need help. We don't really need a big shelter where you're going to bus people from other areas here. Have it next to your home. And let
Thank you.
Well, you need to answer a couple of questions.
Well, many of those questions speak to much larger issues than I can speak to. But your concern, I understand your concern, and that's why I'm here. Not just to hear them. Believe me, if I was a politician, I don't think I'd get elected tonight. So.
Oh, yes, but the way to speak,
But-
certainly not.
But I'm here to hear them and to tell you that the reason I'm here, not just tonight, but the reason that BRC wants to run this shelter is because I am confident that it can't be done better than us. So in my mind, the question is, if there's going to be a shelter here, how do we make it the best it can be for the people inside and for the people who live
How
around
are
it?
you going to address
Quiet, please. One person at a time, please.
I understand that many people don't want a shelter, and I respect that. I don't go to many meetings where people say that they do. But we have this need in our city that is great.
But not
And
in our
unfortunately,
One person, please.
and so we want to make it the best shelter it can be, to minimize the disruption. And again, that has been our experience. So come to Community Board 3 in Manhattan, where we have a shelter for 180 people, and ask Susan Stetzer, the district manager, or Dominic, the Community Board chair, do BRC's homeless people disrupt the community? Do they destroy the parks? Do they increase the crime? Ask the commanding officers of the police. That's why I say don't take my word for it. Talk to the police commanders in the precincts where our
I'm
shelters are.
fine with that, but
Get
I
our-
asked about the fair share in our community, and you're not answering.
I will answer that.
And also
I'm
about
sorry.
the immigrants.
Let me answer that. And the illegal immigrants. I apologize. Fair share. The city must go through a fair share process to law. There's a process. It's not arbitrary. Every time they cite a new shelter. And the city will be going through a fair share process that must be completed before we can start to operate. If that process determines that this violates fair share, then that gets addressed. So it's a legitimate question, and there's a process to respond to it. And of
So
course, you
how
know,
many-
that is not just for shelters, that's for all sorts of programs. On the illegal immigrants, we are very familiar working with illegal immigrants. Unfortunately, they are a significant portion of the shelter system, and any shelter operator, any social service organization worth what they do doesn't turn away illegal immigrants. And again, we have a city, as you all know, I'm sure, that despite some of the federal policies has said, we see it's our responsibility to provide services to people in need, whether or not there's documentation to prove how they got there, because if left unserved, the problems are greater than if the problems are served. We embrace that philosophy. And then we do everything we can to help people establish legal status in this country. There are a variety of reasons somebody is in an illegal status. Some people enter the country illegally. Some people enter the country legally, but then stay longer than they were supposed to. Those are different legal issues that require a different response. Some are easier to solve than others. Some enter the country illegally but have children here, and so their children are citizens. And so that creates other avenues and opportunities to solve those problems. Some people want to go home, whether it's they want to go home to South Carolina, or they want to go home to South America, or they want to go home wherever it is. And we work well, and there are programs in the city that we work with to help people get to the places they want to be if they don't want to stay in this city. Because why have them here if there's a simple solution, a plane ticket and a family that wants them to come back? Then we work with them to help them
We've
go
done
back.
that just
We
recently.
work very closely with Catholic Charities. We work very closely with a variety of legal advocacy organizations and immigration organizations to help people know their rights, fight for their rights, and get the services that they are allowed to have and come in from out of the shadows. And unfortunately, we have too many people in this community and every community in New York City who are living on the streets in fear because they don't know what their rights are. And so we work to help them do that in a thoughtful, encouraging way. We make sure they understand that we're not running prisons, that we're not law enforcement. We're there to help, not to punish.
How about about the security for the parks? Are you able to provide that? It's part of my question.